Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Misha. We're going to talk a little bit about insulin resistance and your heart because it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. But I'm going to add a little something different to it today. But before I get started, let's please understand this. I am just a woman who suffered with hypertension and some resulting heart damage, had diabetes, which I did not know was linked to insulin resistance and all this other stuff that happened to me, all this other stuff. You guys don't know what that is. Heart, not only the heart disease, but joints, sleep problems, weight gain, eyesight problems, bleeding teeth and gums, just an array of problems. And doctors weren't able to figure out what was going on with me. One of the most impactful things that I've heard in a long time was when I was listening to Dr. Casey Means, or she's not a doctor, she was studying to be a doctor, but Casey Means talking about how doctors are really learning to be pigeonholed. They're not learning to connect the dots. They're taking specific symptoms and making them fit a certain diagnosis and then prescribing something for that diagnosis. And yet, if we were able to take a look at all of the symptoms that we're suffering from and start to put them together, the one thing that's at the root of most everything we're suffering from today is insulin resistance. So there's so many learned people out there now, including doctors, talking about insulin resistance and how we can help this whole thing start to get better for us. This whole thing being the entirety, I'm trying to adjust this camera here, right there, of our health issues. Today we're talking about the heart. Now, why I want to talk about the heart, because I suffered with it. I had hypertension that was 180 over 150 every single day for years. Is it any wonder that this last year I had a couple of CVEs? Even after I addressed my insulin resistance, because my heart had been so weakened for 20 or 30 years of nobody taking care of it. And when I say nobody taking care of it, sure, they were throwing medications at me. And they were like, well, this doesn't seem to be working. Let's try another one. And all the while, those medications were making my insulin resistance worse. So we're going to go over all of that. But besides the 5 ways that hypertension is directly linked to, or high blood pressure is directly linked to insulin resistance, I want to talk about this. There is a problem, a growing problem with cardiovascular health and heart failure. And it looks a little something like this with high levels of insulin. Now, not only is the insulin causing disruption in your cells all across, but it's causing a disruption with something called your, I got to get to the notes, you guys. So let me start over. I want you to know that if you're thinking that you can't seem to improve your health, there's a solution here, and we're going to get to that. So hang out with me, and if you just need to know in the meantime, let me know and I will get to it. But this isn't medications. This isn't all of the things that people are talking about with GLP-1s and weight loss and all of that. The truth is high levels of insulin in your blood, something that you might hear of as hyperinsulinemia, can actually make your heart struggle. Did anybody know that your high levels of insulin, even before it becomes prediabetes or type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer, means that your heart is already starting to struggle? So what's happening is a 2016 study, and what blew me away is that this information has been out for 9 years. 9 years they've known that high levels of insulin in your blood can cause problems with your heart for 9 years. So what's happening is when you have high levels of insulin, it's activating certain pathways, and one of those is the beta 2 receptor. Doesn't matter, just understand that that's where it's happening, and that disrupts another pathway called the beta 1 I can never say that word right, adrenergic pathway, which is essential for your body's ability to pump properly. And over time, the dysfunction in these pathways, starting with insulin resistance, creates heart failure where your heart muscle weakens. So, is insulin resistance really important? You guys think about that. You let me know. If we know that insulin resistance is downline causing problems with your heart, not just hypertension, but heart failure, it's causing problems with your liver, it's causing people to lose their gallbladder, it's causing people to have kidney failure. It's causing hormonal disruptions and causing things linked to like autoimmune diseases, especially Hashimoto's. Is insulin resistance important? And is it important enough for you to understand where all of this comes together? Okay, it's one big system that leads us to insulin resistance, and yet that's not what you're being told when you go into the doctor, right? You're being told, lose weight, eat better, you'll feel better. Well, there's some problems because even if you're eating better, doing better, and they're giving you medications, there's a bunch of medications that can actually make your insulin resistance worse. Beta blockers, SSRIs, a number of the things that they've given you for your cholesterol, for your heart, and actually antipsychotics can actually cause more problems with your insulin receptors, making you more insulin resistant. Not only that, when you go in as a type 2 diabetic, we now know, okay, we just said, too much insulin is creating this problem with your heart where your heart starts to not pump right, the muscles get weak, and your heart fails. Yet, what's the number one treatment they're giving you for diabetes, especially diabetes type 2? The traditional thing they've been giving you is more insulin, right? So I want you to stop and think about that for a minute, because if what they're giving you to treat your high levels of insulin is more insulin, and we know that high levels of insulin are causing heart failure, why in the hell are they prescribing that to you? What in the heck is going on in our system that this is what you're being given? Because they're not connecting the dots. They're looking at a specific problem and they're saying they're having a problem with their heart pumping. We're going to give them these medications, but it's causing more insulin resistance, and they're not connecting all those dots, you guys. They're not taught to. So it's up to people like us, just average everyday people, to start questioning and understanding what's really going on. All right. So when insulin is too high in your blood, basically it's sending the wrong signals in your body. I want you to imagine that you're trying to use a GPS, but instead of taking you down the right road, your GPS just keeps taking you down roads that are dead ends, right? Dead end road, dead end road, dead end road, dead end road. You're never able to get to your destination. What's happening in these receptors with insulin blocking them, with insulin causing problems with them, is that all the signals that need to go to your heart, not all of them, but a majority of the signals that need to go to your heart are heading down dead end roads that are not taking them to the destination that they need to be at, where the heart can pump and do what it's supposed to more naturally. So then you're being given SSRIs and you're being given beta blockers to try and help that heart function. All the while, it's causing the root problem to get worse. And this is the biggest problem with our healthcare, or our sick care model in this nation specifically, is that we're given these things that are causing more problems instead of just addressing the root. Please understand, please understand that insulin resistance is the root of almost all of your health issues, including your heart issues. So I often talk about this. 95% of hypertension is linked directly back to insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia. We now know that heart failure is also highly linked to insulin overload in the body. So if we know that 95% of hypertension is linked to insulin resistance, almost 95% of cardiovascular events are linked to hypertension, and that's all linked back to insulin resistance independently of the hypertension. Why are we not getting the message? You've got to address insulin resistance. And so if you know somebody who has high blood pressure or cardiovascular disorders, please understand the quickest, well, maybe not the quickest, but the most sustainable way that they're going to get control of and maintain that and get back to a healthy heart is to address insulin resistance. That's the bottom line. And that's the line that everybody's missing. So again, I'm going to remind you, common medications like statins, beta blockers, thiazide diuretics. That's a whole other thing, because they're trying to get inflammation off of your heart, right? But thiazide diuretics, while it's trying to get inflammation out of your body, it's not addressing the root cause that insulin resistance caused all that swelling in your body in the first place, through pathways of causing inflammation and oxidation in your body. So instead of giving all these thiazide diuretics that are causing more inflammation and more of these problems, why not just address what caused the inflammation in the first place? Again, address the problem. Okay. You can pull out the weed, but if you don't get the roots, the weed's going to grow again. And that's what's happening in our health. They're plucking off the top, They're addressing that weed that you see, but they're not pulling out the root. They're not getting to the bottom of it. And you're continuing to have these weeds called health problems pop up, and you're sick and you're sick, and they're not addressing them. And pretty soon there's so many types of weeds and so many weeds everywhere, they don't know what to do. Address the root. Get that root out, which is insulin resistance, and you'll start to feel better overall. And life will look entirely different for you, but you've got to address insulin resistance. Okay. You guys ask questions as we go along. I appreciate you hopping in. Now, you know that we're given those medications, right? But so how do you, number one, what do we do besides those medications? And number two, how do you address it more naturally and sustainably in a way that your body can deal with that's addressing that root? That we're getting rid of the root of insulin resistance. It's just like leaching into everything we do. For me, I found a protocol that actually addressed the root cause, and it's directly helping with heart health, but also very, very directly helping with insulin resistance. And it's actually the one thing that I changed after years and years of being medication tossed and being on 13 different medications. It's the one thing that got me off of all 13 medications and normalized my blood pressure and started helping my heart heal. This protocol is a tea that I drink in the morning and throughout the day, and then a pre-meal drink that I have before my biggest meal with carbohydrates. Now I have 2 of the pre-meal drink a day just because I love what it's doing for my insides. This is a conversation I have so much. You guys, instead of looking at the weight loss, which is what your doctors are telling you, get rid of the weight, you'll feel better. Well, they're not addressing why the weight's on. They're not addressing why the weight's causing your heart to have problems. They're not addressing the bottom line of what's going on, and that's insulin resistance. So what these 2 things do is start from my gut out and heal up my body so that it can actually start to act like it's supposed to. It's like sometimes I like to think of our body and all these disorders that we have as like children that have never been taught manners. Basically, in today's world, we're so full of bad food and medications that we've never taught our bodies what I would call manners or how to act right, because they just have not been given the tools. What the system does is give my body tools to act right. And as a result, my blood pressure is now, remember, it was 180 over 150 every single day. It's now about 110 over 74 every single day, off of all medications. I don't have one single prescription in my home, none. I do the protocol. I have a few other things, like I love to support myself with magnesium and sometimes omega-3s, but that's it. I'm not taking all kinds of vitamins and all kinds of complicated protocols. I drink a tea throughout the day, and I have a pre-meal drink before I eat, and that's it. Your number was 72 at midday. Your number for what? Because 72 is an incomplete number for me. If that's blood glucose, that's amazing. But if it's your blood pressure, we're missing a number. If the diastolic was 72, what was the systolic, the top number? I need to know that. I don't really need to know that, but blood glucose, that's amazing. That's amazing. 72 midday is an amazing number. We'll get into some of that in a little bit, but I want you to understand directly how the protocol that I do is affecting this new piece that I'm talking about with heart failure. So we understand now, or I hope you guys understand, that insulin resistance is at the root of almost all of this, right? But unlike those pills, the medications, the prescriptions that were being given that just mask the symptoms, because they're like, oh, this is a symptom, we're going to do this to address the heart needing to pump harder. We're going to address, nitric oxide needing to be produced, but we're not addressing why we're not producing nitric oxide, why our heart's not pumping. We're not addressing those things. We're just addressing the fact that it's not. That's what medications are doing. But what this protocol does is works with your body to address the insulin resistance directly. And the problem with those traditional heart failure treatments is they have a ton of symptoms, side effects. And some of them, without going into detail, when I look up these medications, the list is so big, and to me, it's terrifying. But you may feel dizzy, you may feel nauseated. You are definitely maybe having more problems with insulin resistance, not the way I want to go. The protocol doesn't make me feel dizzy. In fact, it's helped my vertigo go away. I couldn't stand on the edge of a cliff when I was hiking because I was afraid I was just going to fall off 4 years ago, and I don't have that problem now. I couldn't go up and down stairs because I would get so dizzy that I would literally fall downstairs because I would lose my balance. Um, and the pain in my joints was there. So now I don't have those problems. My vertigo is gone. Some of those medications can actually cause those symptoms, and that's really not a way I want to go. I'm going to tell you guys, I love more natural solutions, but I also understand that life is super busy. Thank you for the loves and likes. I see you, Rodrigo. I see you. Thank you. But here's the thing. I don't want to live that kind of life. I don't want to be taking all these medications. I don't want to be just band-aid fixing symptoms that are never going away and other symptoms are cropping up as a result. I want to support my body. I want to do it in a way that's quick and simple and realistic, and because I'm a nerd at heart, I wanna do it in some with something that's been proven. So that's what the protocol does, is it's proven by science, backed by clinical studies, and it's really addressing insulin resistance. Now, there's so many people who have overcome heart problems, kidney failure, liver problems, Hashimoto's, PCOS, a number of these downline disorders. You guys understand that almost everything we're suffering with today is downline from insulin resistance. So, how is it helping with heart failure in particular? The tea that I'm drinking, it's a concentrated yerba mate drink. It has powerful antioxidant properties, and they help reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. And those are two key factors that contribute to heart failure. So when you reduce inflammation, you're not just preventing heart failure, you're not just preventing plaque buildup in the arteries, but you're also supporting the overall health of your heart. And this tea, in this highly concentrated form that I'm drinking it in, does all of that. Now, when it's doing that, it's helping. We're going to talk about blood pressure in a minute. And so I'll get a little bit more deep on some of the actions like the endothelial cell, which is the innermost lining of your blood vessels, dysfunction. Those are the cells that produce something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the thing that allows your blood vessels to open up and relax. With insulin resistance, it can't happen. The Unimate is helping those protect those endothelial cells so they can do their job and relax and contract at the right time. That's pretty powerful for a natural tea that's stevia, yerba mate, and some flavoring that I drink 2 of them a day. I just mix mine in about a 40-ounce mug and drink it all day long. I'm over halfway through this one. I'll finish it probably in the next hour, and it tastes great. So it's doing that. But what's happening then is you're getting better blood flow to your heart, and that's important, right? If you want to keep your heart healthy and strong, you've got to get blood flow to your heart. It's not just about the hypertension, the increased blood pressure. It's actually getting blood to your heart so that you're less likely to have any kind of heart failure. So it's a more natural way to support that instead of going, oh, here's a symptom, here's a thing, let's give you a pill that's going to cause other problems, but who cares because it fixed this one thing. Um, Before I move on, I want to talk about that. The one story that I remember the most, there were so many, but the one that, we all have stories that really stand out to us. This woman came into an allergy clinic I was working in, and so I was the MA. I had to put in all of her medications. I had to do the intake. I had to do all the stuff. I was the liaison between the doctor and the patient. And when I got to the part of her intake where I asked her about her medications, she literally broke out in tears, and she handed me 2 bags full of medication and said, "I can't deal with it. You figure it out." And it took me over a half an hour to get through one of those bags of medications. I was never able to, in my shift or before she left, get all of them in her chart. Where do you get this tea? I am selling it. I'm a representative for the company. Absolutely. You just go to my link in my bio, and the very top option takes you to my landing page, and that very top option takes you to a place where you can buy the tea. Plus, it gives you a little summary about these products, not as in depth as I'm giving you, but it'll talk about the cost and why they work. And then you can make a choice from there. So please visit that and understand that you'll get me as a coach. You're going to get the guarantees I'll talk about in a little bit. If you purchase from there, you don't get them when you purchase places like Amazon, eBay, Walmart, because they're not supported by our company. All right. So that's just the tea. But the second part of this, and we're still talking heart failure before I get into hypertension. But the second part of this, the fiber, also helps with the heart failure, but it's doing it in this way. It's helping to support healthy blood sugar levels, which is helping you get your insulin resistance down, get your insulin levels down. So that reduction of insulin spikes that are leading to your high blood pressure and cholesterol imbalance, this pre-meal drink is helping you reduce all of that, stabilizing your blood sugar, lowering the amount of insulin your body needs to produce. And when that improves, when your body has less insulin to deal with it at one time, your insulin resistance starts to go away, your insulin sensitivity starts to come back, all of that healthy for your heart. So they work synergistically. That's why it's a system. Okay. So the risk of heart failure with these two together by addressing insulin resistance is significantly lowered. Okay. So, and it's more sustainable. So it's not damaging your body further. It's supporting your body from the inside out. And that's what's really important. Now, I was having a conversation with a woman today who works with coaching other women, and she's all about positivity. And yet one of the pieces we miss, even though this is about heart, I want you to understand that when you get your insulin resistance under control, you start to feel better in your skin, meaning in your person. You start to feel better and have more self-worth as your insulin resistance goes down. I did a whole talk on neurology and neurohormones the other day. You guys go back to YouTube and watch that. This whole thing impacts your entire health. All right. So it's natural, it's sustainable. This is how it comes to you in this type of packet, and it's this narrow and this size because when I'm out traveling, if I'm in my car, if I'm in an airport, I can just get a bottle of water, or I can take my stainless steel mugs, fill them up with water, pour this in. Now I'm not steeping tea. I'm not carrying around a mug that I have to continually add hot water to, like traditional yerba mate. I don't have to do any of that. I pour it in water, both of the products, and it's just that easy. So that's made it sustainable for my life, because I don't know about you guys, but I will be 61 in a couple of weeks. And I remember when nothing was this easy. I remember before our lives became so overwhelmed with information and we're just like running at the speed of light all day, every day. Who has the time for all of that? I used to bake bread by hand. I used to stand at the kitchen counter and pick cherries because there was no social media. There was none of this stuff because we don't live in the same world. Our world is so fast paced. We need stuff that can keep up with us. And that's part of the reason I love the system. Okay. So let's move on to hypertension. Does anybody have questions about that? And I want you to know too, before I get to the end of this, if you're really interested in this product and you also are interested in figuring out how to change your life and work in today's business world, we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. But just ask me questions. All right. Let me know what's important to you guys. Let me check in on YouTube over here. I haven't looked at your questions. Hey Red, it's so good to see you today. Sorry I was delayed in seeing you. I have some notes up in front of that. Okay, so hypertension, 5 ways that insulin resistance is causing high blood pressure. That's what hypertension is, right? Hyper meaning high, tension on your heart. So it's causing this endothelial cell dysfunction. I'm going to go over them briefly, and we're going to start to go over each one of them a little more in detail. So that endothelial cell dysfunction means the innermost wall of your blood vessels is getting really thick, narrowing down the space inside your blood vessels. That's causing your pressure to build up. When that happens, those endothelial cells, the innermost lining of your blood vessel, those are the cells that are producing nitric oxide that allow your blood vessels to expand and relax. But because they're so thickened and dysfunctioned, they can no longer do that second job of producing nitric oxide. Now your blood pressure is rising. It's creating this, too much insulin creates too much cortisol. Too much cortisol creates too much insulin. So this extra cortisol is making this fight or flight response in your body go off even at a minimal level, but instead of like in quick bursts, like the lion chasing us and we got to get away, or the bad guy chasing us down and we got to get away, it's happening all the time. So your blood pressure is rising even more. You can't get rid of water and salt because of dysfunction that's happening in your kidneys. It's retaining too much salt, which means it's retaining too much water, and your kidneys cannot allow you to pee that excess out. So that water goes into your joints, it goes into your blood vessels. You have more water in your blood vessels. So tiny vessels that can't relax and they're tightened more because of fight or flight. Now we're adding even more liquid to that. Your blood pressure is skyrocketing. But then it's also contributing to something called LDLB dysfunction. We have different types of LDL or low density lipoprotein, and B is this small, dense type. With insulin resistance, you're creating more of the LDLB than your body should, and that's where you start to build up with blockages in your arteries. It has nothing to do with dietary fats. The healthy dietary fats has everything to do with excess sugar. By the way, one doctor I worked with told me sugar is like glass shards in your bloodstream. That's why your body's trying to get it out of your bloodstream so quickly. Yeah, it's energy for us, but it's causing this problem in our bloodstream. So I want you to picture this in your bloodstream, besides those 5 things I talked about. That excess sugar is acting like shards of glass, making little cuts and tears in this bloodstream that's already having problems, and then that causes further dysfunction. I'll explain in a minute. So 5 ways, very direct ways, insulin resistance is the root of your high blood pressure. So what is high blood pressure? Well, if you have a blood pressure that's 130/80 or higher, that's high blood pressure. Don't let it go. I did. I was like, 130/80 isn't so bad. In my terms, ain't so bad. And I worked in medical offices. But little did I know, or little did I heed the warning that it was really bad and it was going to lead to other problems. But it also, nobody was telling me why my blood pressure was going up to 130/80. Again, at 61, my blood pressure is now 110/74. No medications, only the protocol. So let's go back to endothelial cell dysfunction. If you guys want to know, I'm going to tell you anyway, because this is where I love to talk. So endothelial cell dysfunction. Remember, you have blood vessels. There's multiple layers in your blood vessels. The innermost layer of cells is called the endothelium, endothelial cells. So I want you to picture your blood vessels as being like this, or think of it like a fire hose. With insulin resistance, one of the things with insulin resistance is there's excess energy in the body because most of the cells are shutting down and saying, I don't want it. You're overwhelming me. I'm not taking it up. But there are some cells that will be greedy and take up too much. Okay. Those endothelial cells take up too much. Now they're growing and they're getting really thick. So now this space looks like this space. Okay. So it's thickened. So now picture taking a fire hose, trying to put out a fire. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, that fire hose isn't available. The truck is still pumping the same amount of water, but instead you attach a garden hose to the truck. Um, it's going to cause an increase in blood pressure. That's one of the endothelial cell dysfunction. Does it deliver to Australia? Absolutely, it does, you guys. So we operate in 60 countries throughout the world, and we're expanding on that with this protocol. We're expanding on that every month. It feels like we're working continually with governments to get the efficacy of the science of this and get it to areas. Like a year and a half ago, it wasn't available in South Africa. It is now. My link that is in my profile is based on your IP address. So if you're in Australia, it's going to open up the website that's available to you with the products available to you, and you're still going to get support from me. We can talk on WhatsApp, that wonderful encrypted source where I can talk to anybody throughout the world, and we get to talk and work together to get you healthier. So we're available, and by the way, not only are we available in 60 countries throughout the world, we have 50 distribution centers throughout the world. So if you're in the UK, yeah, we have distribution centers in the UK. We have distribution centers in the US. We have them in Canada. We have them in the South Pacific. We have them in the UAE. They're all over the world. So it's not like you're waiting for products to come to you from the US. This is a large company that's been around in science since 1903. So, yeah, you can get it in Australia, absolutely, New Zealand. We're available there for sure. So just use the same link. It's going to get you the products wherever you are in the world. So back to the endothelial cell dysfunction. Now we know those cells are too thick, narrowing down that space, impeding your blood flow. The second action, remember, that I talked about when the endothelial cells start to dysfunction is that nitric oxide, that chemical component that allows your blood vessels to relax. When those cells are so thick and they're starting to become dysfunctional, they cannot produce nitric oxide. And so that means the blood vessels are not widening out and allowing blood flow through. Now they're thick and they're tight and your blood pressure is going up. Now, I'm going to, instead of just doing the whole thing and then talking about it, I'm going to tell you how each one of the products is helping with each specific disorder related to your hypertension. So the tea that I talk about, by the way, this is not like any other tea on the market, and I will explain that. You guys want to know, I'll explain it in a little bit. But the yerba mate tea, the highly concentrated and purified form of yerba mate tea that I'm talking about, has been shown, again, to have those antioxidant properties, and that can help protect those endothelial cells, or the endothelium, the innermost cell of your blood vessels. It's protecting them. So now it's saying, oh, hey, you don't have to thicken up so much. And hey, yeah, you're safe in producing nitric oxide. We can relax those blood vessels, allowing blood flow through and allowing blood flow to get to areas that it needs to get to, like your heart. And blood is flowing in and out of your heart, but it's hard to get it returning when all of this dysfunction is happening. Okay. So it's supporting your blood vessels. Unimate is directly supporting your blood vessels by helping with that inflammation, and that allows them to dilate and just get that blood flow across your body. I don't know why this came up, but it just did. So whatever pops in my mind, you guys get to hear. But guys with erectile dysfunction, that's an issue. You're not getting blood flow. Think about it. This tea and this protocol helps return blood flow throughout the body. Okay, let's go back to the heart. Now, the pre-meal drink, what it's doing is with the blend of fibers, it's more than just fiber. There's a blend of fibers in there. It can also play a role. So the studies have shown that the fiber in this has a positive effect on nitric oxide production. Remember, that's what's allowing that blood vessels to loosen up. Fungus among us. I've seen you before and your name always just trips me up, dude. So, or woman. I'll just say dude because it's kind of an across the board thing. All right. So, the fibers, the specific fibers in this help with nitric oxide production, okay? Or they have a positive effect on nitric oxide production, and in great part by reducing blood sugar spikes, and that helps that endothelial cell dysfunction. So they contribute to better circulation, reducing burden on the heart. So the tea and the pre-meal drink working together on that endothelial dysfunction part. Now, the other part, the elevated cortisol and increased fight or flight. Remember, insulin goes up, your cortisol goes up. You're stressed all the time. Your heart's pumping harder all the time. You're constantly in a cycle of fight or flight all the time when insulin levels are up. So how does this help? So let me pause for a second before I get into the product. So what's really happening here is as cortisol levels go up and you have that fight or flight, everything is tightening up a little bit more, trying to get that blood flow pumping, and that's happening continuously. And that's causing problem with your blood pressure. So now what's happening is, even though this has the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee, it's not just about that kind of energy. It's not just about rising the cortisol kind of energy, that bang energy, that Red Bull, that coffee does for you. What this is doing is promoting a balanced, calm energy through the ability to support your adrenal health. Okay? Your adrenal health matters when it comes to your heart. So it helps stabilize cortisol because that's where the cortisol is coming from. So instead of those adrenals being overreactive, they're starting to calm down. So when we talk about a calm sense of energy, it's not just in the brain that it's calmer, it's in your adrenals too. And now that helps stabilize your cortisol levels. The tea. directly, not just through insulin resistance, but directly helping those adrenals be more calm. Okay. So that's keeping your stress levels under control and reduces your fight or flight response that would otherwise continue to raise your blood pressure. Is that crazy? You guys, that stuff is crazy to me because no doctor ever told me about this stuff. No doctor that I ever worked for, ran all the tests with, did all the MRIs and CAT scans and yada, 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 with never, ever, 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 ever told me this stuff. Okay. So the second part of the product in the cortisol sense is helping with this. By stabilizing your blood sugars and getting the insulin down, it's helping reduce the cortisol level inertly. Okay. So when your blood sugar spikes and your body's releasing insulin and then it's releasing cortisol, and this is keeping your stress cycle up. But the pre-meal drink is reversing that cycle, keeping the insulin spike lower, keeping the cortisol spike lower, and then it's helping your heart from having to be under that stress all the time, helping your body from being under the stress of sugar all the time. Now, your kidneys related to your heart. When your kidneys are suffering, your heart is suffering. Okay. Your kidneys, when they're under the onslaught of insulin resistance, cannot produce aldosterone in the right levels so that they can tell when to hold on to salt because we need some, right? We need some sodium, but they also cannot tell when to get rid of salt when it's too much. You guys, the whole thing of salting your food when you have hypertension, would you be surprised to know that it's really the sugar that's causing that reaction? If you're eating too much salt, it's going to taste really bitter. If your food doesn't taste bitter from salt, you're not getting in too much salt. You're probably getting in too much sugar, causing disruptions in your body being able to use the sodium. So this is what's happening with your kidneys, your sodium, and your heart. When your kidneys are not producing aldosterone in the right amounts, it cannot filter out that salt and water. You're now retaining way too much water, adding more volume to your blood flow that is already passing through um, blood vessels that are too thick and can't relax and are off tightened up because of cortisol. Now you're adding more volume to it, and your blood pressure is going up and up and up and up. And your kidneys are suffering. And maybe you're starting to be told you may have to go on dialysis someday because your kidneys are so under stress. Not only are you worried about your heart, but your kidneys are suffering too. That's all likely to be insulin resistance and too much sugar in your body at any given time. So, how the products are helping with that part of the issue is the Unimate, again, with anti-inflammatories, and specifically antioxidants, help reduce that inflammation and oxidative stress in your kidneys. Hey, Maria. So it's reducing that stress and oxidation, inflammation in your kidneys, and that starts to reverse that aldosterone dysfunction and the inflammation in your kidneys and allows your kidneys to say, oh, hey, we need to hold on to this salt, but this salt that they ate at this time, we don't need it, so we're going to pass it on by. Your kidneys, unless they're sensitive and not inflamed, can't do that job. So we're helping the kidneys start to be less inflamed, less oxidized, and to function more properly. Okay. So that's how the tea itself, the tea is helping with that. But then the pre-meal drink, again, with the high fibers, 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers in it, help regulate fluid retention more indirectly. Okay. The fibers in this help in your digestion, and that helps stabilize the blood glucose levels, and that reduces the impact of salt retention, that aldosterone dysfunction, and that supports your kidney health over time. A lot of this isn't immediate, you guys. We've damaged your body over years and years of time. It's time to let it heal up, and you've got to give it time to heal up because these are natural solutions. Okay. So its effect on insulin resistance, the pre-meal drink, and overall hydration can lead to more balanced internal fluid environment, meaning there's not so much fluid in your bloodstream and even in your joints and in all the places it shouldn't be. And your body starts to free up, keeping your blood pressure down, keeping your joints lubricated properly, keeping the edema and swelling out of your feet and your hands. And now you're starting to function like you maybe once remembered functioning. The tea and the fiber or the pre-meal drink are doing those things directly and indirectly in your system. So one of the other ways I mentioned was this increased production of LDL type B. So let's dive in on that one, okay? So how many of you guys know that there's more than one type of LDL? Because your cholesterol panel generally talks about your triglycerides, or it talks about your overall cholesterol, your triglycerides, your LDL, and your HDL. And most of you are told your LDL is the bad guy, so that's the number to watch. I'll give you a calculation here in a minute after I explain this whole thing. So the LDL production, you have more than two types, but we're going to talk about type A and type B. I want you to think about type A like a big buoyant beach ball bouncing around the river in your body or your bloodstream, the river and the creeks, whatever, and the streams. I get picked on for the way I say crick because I'm North Idahoan. But so it's this large buoyant beach ball that's just kind of bouncing around on top of the water, doesn't really get hung up too much. Maybe long ways down the road, it'll fall off to the edge and get stuck there in branches or whatever. The type B LDL is smaller and denser. What type B LDL does is it acts more like a golf ball. So it's not going to float around on top of the blood vessels or in the liquid in your blood vessels. It's going to start to sink more rapidly. Now, remember when I talked about the blood sugars acting like glass shards in your bloodstream? I'm thinking in my head, does anybody know why I love talking about this so much? Because I love talking about this so much. But anyway, those little glass shards are causing little tears in the lining in your blood vessels. Those little tears, what LDL-B is supposed to do is go in and kind of sink into your blood vessels, find those little tears, clog them off, and help them heal up. But the tears are getting so big because of excess sugar all the time that the LDL-B falls into that site, but instead of just blocking it up and letting it heal, and now the blood flow is proper, it gets in and under that little lining, and where the lining was like this, now those LDL-B starts to bounce up in there, and now you have this obstruction in your blood cells, which is making your blood flow worse. Cholesterol buildup in your blood vessels because the tears are big and you have way too much of this LDL-B that's small and dense. So now think about standing on a bridge over a stream, a creek, a river, and you drop at the same time a beach ball and a golf ball. Which one's going to sink quicker? The golf ball. Now you can drop off a truckload of beach balls and they're going to just float down the river. And like I said, one by one get hung up here or there. But the golf balls are all going to sink to the bottom of the river pretty rapidly and change the way the bottom of that river bed looks. And that's what's happening inside your blood vessels when we're producing too much LDL-B. Now, what insulin resistance does is it shifts this balance between the two types of LDL that we need and starts creating more LDL-B while your blood vessels are being damaged. And now you're starting to have that cholesterol buildup that's causing the problems in your blood vessels. So how the heck is the system helping with that one, right? How's it helping with LDL-B? And then I'll give you the calculation. Does anybody want the calculation to be able to tell whether you have insulin resistance, whether you're having cholesterol problems, and whether you're at risk for heart disease? It'll tell you those three things. If you want to know that, give me some hearts or type a 1 in the comments, and I will give you that calculation here in just a second. So the tea is helping like this. It has a more indirect effect in this area, lowering your LDL levels. So the yerba mate, the primary ingredient in our tea that's highly concentrated, way beyond what anybody else can deliver to you, has been shown in studies to help improve lipid metabolism, fat metabolism, which can help reduce that LDL-B production and improve the overall lipid profile. So now you're getting back to balance, right? So you have some LDL-B, which you need. You have some LDL-A, but you're not overproducing LDL-B. Unimate has been proven to help with that stabilization of that production of lipids in your bloodstream. So by reducing LDL-B cholesterol, you're lowering the risk of plaque buildup and improving your heart health. So again, where does the pre-meal drink fall into that? Well, the balance is also they're helping by supporting your healthy blood sugar and insulin levels. And the fiber imbalance, the fibers, 7 different fibers, play a role in reducing bad cholesterol levels and supporting heart health by controlling your sugars. Okay? By indirectly improving the lipid profile, because you're not spiking your insulin, you're not spiking your sugar, but it's helping that lipid profile act more normally because there's not too much insulin in your bloodstream. So that helps your cholesterol level overall. It's a more natural approach to what's going wrong and why this is happening. Obstructive cardiomyopathy. Um, I am not a doctor, but I can tell you, I can look up again the direct relationship between this and cardiomyopathy. But again, your if you're addressing your insulin levels and getting the proper blood flow and allowing the nerves in your heart to contract like they're supposed to, it's going to reduce the risk of that. Now, can I prescribe anything? Can I tell you anything? No. But what I could tell you is this, Diane, that if you want to add something more natural to start getting your heart health back, you can do this. It has a 90-day money back guarantee. It's not going to worsen your heart. Everything about these two products helps your heart strengthen. So low blood pressure can come up, high blood pressure can come down. Your heart muscles can start to work more properly when we're looking at the cause of insulin resistance being involved in it. Maybe if you send me a message, Diane, I will do a short video on cardiomyopathy. I need to do research because I am not a doctor to give you a more intelligible answer. Okay, can we agree on that? If you do that for me, I'll get you some information. But understand I am not an advocate for medications, nor can I prescribe. So what I can do is link in the system that helped me and whether it could help that or not by indirect or direct actions. Okay, we can do that. And I'm more than happy to do that. So just message me so I remember your name later. Or here, let me just take a screenshot. There we go. All right. So that's your LDLB. So now we're affecting your cholesterol, we're affecting how much fluid is in your bloodstream, we're affecting how your bloodstream can contract and relax, and we're affecting how it's producing the nitric oxide, which is relaxing, and the thickness of your bloodstream. So the two products together, that's what reversed my hypertension. That's what took me, and you guys, it wasn't just 180 over 150. I remember the first time I went to the doctor and told them it was that high, or actually I went to the emergency room in my mid-30s. They were like, "No, it can't be. You wouldn't be upright if it was." And they tested my blood pressure on one arm, and they were like, that must have been a bad reading." And they tested it on the other arm, and then they waited a second, and they tested it on the first arm again, and then they immediately took me back to the ER without waiting, like wheelchair comes in, they wheel me back, and under a bunch of tests, I go. It was never, ever, ever put under control by any method that they gave me to control my blood pressure. In fact, there were nights when I would wake up and it would be 220, 240, 260 on the systolic, over about 160 on the diastolic. Should I be upright in here today? No, I should not. And I'm very aware of that. But all of the medications, all of the therapies, all of the stuff they gave me didn't help. And I didn't expect this protocol of a tea and a pre-meal drink to do anything for my blood pressure. I expected maybe some weight loss and maybe my diabetes to get better. But not only did it reverse my diabetes, help me lose 55 pounds, but it completely reversed my hypertension. And even though I had some CVEs this summer from a weakened heart, we've done so much work to strengthen it that I'm feeling much better. And now I don't feel like I might not make it to 70. Okay, so it's important, you guys. Now, on the backside of it, let's talk about a few things I haven't brought up. The tea and the pre-meal drink, they're a protocol, right? 2 teas in a day, 1 pre-meal drink. Those 3 drinks in total are about $5 a day. Less than it costs you for a Starbucks, less than it costs you for a soda pop in many stores or a bag of chips. So it's helping you in a real way that's bringing back your health for less than you're spending on all the junk that's causing the problems. So there's that. It has a 90-day money back guarantee. Diane, with your cardiomyopathy, has any doctor, anybody said, if you're not feeling better in 90 days, we'll give you your money back? I can't tell you that this is going to fix cardiomyopathy. I cannot. I'm more than willing to go do research. But if you had a chance on positively impacting your health, and if you weren't feeling better, like your stress is under control, everything is starting to feel better. You have more energy in a way that's not costing your heart. If you don't experience that in 90 days, you get your money back. It started out as a lipid and A1C. If those two things didn't improve in 90 days, you'd get your money back. But the company believes in this product and how much, and it's not just our belief, we've seen it in customer after customer after customer who's getting better. It's now just a 90-day satisfaction guarantee. So please promise me that if you try it, you're going to do it for 90 days. Because remember, it's natural and it's helping you. And hey, Dale, I saw you hop in. Welcome in. So I want you to give it 90 days. If after 90 days, it's just you don't feel more energy, you don't feel like you're moving the needle on that dial at all, you call the company back and you get your money back. Now, you do have to save your boxes so that you have your lot numbers. That's it. You don't have to send anything back. You don't have to do any of that. But in 90 days, you can get your money back. That's one guarantee. The tea, part of the reason it's so effective is it's not just yerba mate tea. It's a highly concentrated and purified extract. So you're not getting the leaves and the stems that are really not giving you anything. It's standardized so that if it doesn't meet a minimum of the components that I talk about in the tea, it doesn't ever come out to you. None of the other teas are standardizing that it's high in chlorogenic acids, that it's high in theobromine or mate saponins or triterpenoid saponins, any of those things that are actually helping the heart. Nobody else standardizes that. We do. And they test every single batch before it comes out to you, or it just simply doesn't go out. You don't get those guarantees or those assurances when you buy on Amazon. Hey, Jason, y'all are in here. And Nubian, you don't get those guarantees. You don't get the satisfaction guarantee. You don't get the quality guarantee. You don't get the freshness guarantee when you buy from those other places. Hi, I can't even say your name, and I'm not going to murder it. I wish I could, but Owami, Tanti, hello. Okay. So know that. Please order through the link so that you know that and the other thing is it's coming directly from the company. They ship it out to you. It's not sitting around in the heat or in the cold in my place and, any of that. It's coming directly to you from the company and they have control over it every step of the way before that. Also, our company manufactures our own products. We have our own science team that are very dedicated. Our company is all about metabolic health. So it's not just about taking whatever seems to be trending, like all the people who are now making yerba mate drinks because of the GLP-1 prevalence in the world today. We've actually done studies. By the way, not so much to do with the heart, but everything to do with the heart with GLP-1 too. This can produce your own GLP-1s or help increase your own production of GLP-1 by up to 70% more than you do now. It's not a GLP-1. It doesn't contain GLP-1. It supports your body in producing what it's supposed to. And there's a big difference anytime you take anything exogenously, which is foreign to your body, something you're putting in that wasn't created in your body, or endogenously created in your body. There's a whole difference in how those hormones and chemicals are created in your body. The GLP-1 peptide hormone, we're increasing your production, which your body recognizes and uses better by up to 70% with this product because it's so highly concentrated. But then the purification process that we take it through, and then I'll get off of this topic, but we take it through a step that nobody else that I'm aware of takes their products through. And that means that microplastics, molds, pesticides, other toxins, PAHs are removed from our product. So now it's extremely pure. You're not dumping more toxins into your body that's causing more inflammation and oxidation. So you just go to my profile, tap on my picture up above. When the white box comes up down below, this is for TikTok, then you're going to tap on that. In my profile, you'll see right under my picture 2 red lights, and then you'll see the links. The very top link in there is for Linktree. That's my landing page. And when you get there, the very top option is for the page to get to my product. It will give you an overview of what it is and the cost, and then you can choose whether you need to talk to me more or whether you're just ready to order. And if you need more information from me, please use the option to reach out to me and set an appointment to just talk about your health issues, or use WhatsApp and text me because I do respond, okay? But it's that simple. Get the product from somebody reputable, you get the guarantees, you get the support, and then if your life isn't changing in a positive direction in 90 days, you'll get your money back. I've never had that kind of guarantee from anybody, and I've never used the 90-day money back guarantee. I've tried many things for 90 days that just didn't work. And I felt like I was throwing darts at the dartboard. I don't know how many of you guys feel that way, but that's how I felt through most of my health journey. All right, Rick, what's the tea name? Here, I'll put the link in over here for you guys on YouTube. I do not mean to ignore you guys. Sometimes there's stuff up there. So just use the top option in that and uh, in my landing page, and that will get you to the product to order. And Red, you can set up an appointment to talk with me about the business or the product, and those links should be in that link tree as well. So if you're interested in representing the product like I do, then contact me. But what I want to tell you guys is this: you do not have to have all the science knowledge that I have. In fact, I would prefer that you don't. I just want you to know that it works. I want you to try it for yourself and see that it works. And I want you to be on fire for people and getting their health back that you want to hop on and help others because it's helping you. Do you have to be a nerd like me to do this? No. It's better if you're not. Jason, I love you too. So would you type in your story here and tell them? It's a protocol that helps with insulin resistance and thereby helping your heart. Now, let's see, that comment didn't come through. Jason says, this woman saved me from a painful existence and helped me to help myself. And Jason, I remember our first talks, and I love you so much, bud. I'm so glad. Now, Jason has lost, is it 300 pounds now, Jason? Or it's over 200 pounds because he was 464 pounds when he started. His doctor wanted him to have gastric bypass surgery. They wanted to put him on the injection meds. They wanted him to do everything. And he said, no, I'm going to try this. And his doctors actually got mad at him. Jason is a little bit fiery like I am. And him and his doctor almost got into altercations, we'll call it, on multiple occasions. And yet, here he is now. His health is getting better. His mood is better. He's not this grumpy Gus anymore. He has lost a ton of weight and just gained his health back and getting his A1C under control. His A1C was either 13.4 or 14.4 when he started, and now I believe it's under 6. That's huge for natural products that he didn't go on any medications for. I am not a doctor. I worked in doctors' offices, but I'm not a doctor. I'm a nerd. I like to learn things, whether it's people will ask me questions and I go on a search for the real answers. That's just the way I am. And I love to share the science and the knowledge because here's the thing. For me, I'm not a doctor. I was studying to be a physician's assistant. Life happened and hit me in the face. But I love science. I love sharing knowledge. And that's why I do this, because what I found is that after all the years I worked in doctors' offices and in the medical field, nobody ever talked to me about this. After all the drug rep lunches and dinners and presentations I sat through, even in hormone clinics, nobody ever talked about this stuff. And now I'm hearing other doctors. Jason, Ardit has a question for you. Will you answer his question? Oh, no, that's fine. I see what the question was. So, nobody ever talked about it, and more doctors are talking about this. I want to drop some knowledge for you. You need to be aware. Most doctors go into medicine because they want to help people. And most doctors just don't have that opportunity because what they're being told, yes, they're learning about the cellular biology of the body and they're learning about how different systems interact and they're learning about all of these things. And then they're told to find a specialty to go down. And so then they start to learn that they're only dealing with the symptoms that are addressing what they're focused on, but they're not putting everything together. And then we're missing the real health. But doctors are not being given nutrition courses. If we know that insulin resistance is at the root of 95% of our chronic health disorders, and that is rooted in the modern food environment that's not giving us the nutrients we need, isn't that a simpler approach to our overall health than medication after medication, or like the poor lady I talked about earlier who had 2 bagfuls of medication? And she was so overwhelmed, she was in tears. And every medication they gave her more symptoms. They created another medication. And as I put everything in the system, I recognized that. Here she started with this medication. She told me what her I asked her what set everything off. Where did it all start? And as I went through her medications, I found that medication, and then I got curious. And so I went back to her chart and I started reading what the side effects of that medication were. And lo and behold, those side effects led to another medication, and those side effects led to another medication, and those side effects led to another medication until this poor lady had two bags full of medications, and the majority of them were not addressing the original issue that she had. And that's what's happening to us. So what I'm advocating for is that we address the original issue. And for most of us, that original issue, that root cause is insulin resistance. Okay. If we address the insulin resistance, all of these things that I talk about have a chance, not in hell, but a chance in heaven of getting better. Because we're actually, like I said earlier, instead of just plucking the weed off, we're pulling the whole root out. Not only are we pulling one root out, we're pulling a root system out. And that's how we start to get better. But until we get that root system out, we're just filled with weeds called symptoms and disorders. And we're sick. And we don't know how to deal with it. And it becomes overwhelming. And so then all of a sudden you stop taking care of your lawn, and now it's overgrown and it's dilapidated. And that's what's happening in your body. So this system addresses those weeds and those roots. He was on 18 pills a day. Dale, now she's med free. So Dale is much like me, and I love you, Dale. You guys should go follow Jason and Dale. Dale does talks every day. Follow her and you'll learn more too. Dale was in medical and she's done a wonderful job helping other people. So, Ardit, if a type 1 diabetic needs insulin, what's the alternative? What the alternative is, Ardit, are you type 1 diabetic? And Ardit brings up a good question. There's a very big difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, and yet there's a high correlation. So, insulin is produced in your pancreas. In a type 1 diabetic, they cannot produce insulin. In a type 2 diabetic, we can produce it, but we just are producing too much of it. And again, we got to go back to the root. So if you know that high amounts of insulin are the problem, what I want you to think about with type 1 diabetes is how do I get my need for insulin down? Okay. So if you can get the need for insulin down and lower your insulin load, whether it's through a pump or whether it's through injections, whether it's your long acting or whether it's your rescue insulin, if you can get that need down, it means that you're taking less insulin. And that less insulin that you're having to take to address the sugar that you're eating means that your cells respond better to the insulin in your body. So now here's where type 1 and type 2 converge, right? Type 1 can't produce it, but they're still under the same onslaught of modern food environment and crappy food that type 2s are. And you guys know that type 2 diabetics can end up acting the same as type 1 diabetics because their pancreas finally shuts down because they cannot get control of what's causing the need for insulin. So is it whether you're type 1 or type 2, I would invite you to think about it as a need for insulin. If we reduce the need, both type 1 and type 2 start to feel better. And this is why I've had so many type 1 customers who have reduced their long-acting insulin by about half, who've gotten rid of the excess weight and the brain fog and the angries and all of the stuff that they suffer from and the body aches and pains and start to function more normally. Will they always have to take insulin? Yes. Will they always be able to take the more appropriate amount of insulin for their body and needs? Yes. And that's the problem, is the need for insulin for a type 1 is too high, just like it is for a type 2. Type 1 can't produce it, type 2 can. We both need to regulate our need for the insulin. Why? Insulin is a hormone that is carrying energy to the cells of your body. So it's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary that we have some insulin in our system. Okay. So we eat food. From the food, we derive either a little bit of glucose or energy, or we derive a lot of glucose or energy. Oh, TikTok's making me verify. Hang on a second. There we go. So it's about the energy production in our bloodstream. If we're overloading our bloodstream with glucose or sugar, for simple terms, and our body can't handle it, that's when we perceive the need for more insulin because we're trying to get that hormone to get that sugar out of our blood and into our cells. Okay. With insulin resistance, we've overloaded the system so much that it has high levels of insulin or hyperinsulinemia, and then we become insulin resistant, and then we become pre-diabetic, and then we become diabetic. There's a very similar cycle that happens with type 1 diabetic in that you become insulin resistant. Now you're already diabetic, but that insulin resistance in your cells is going to act the same as it is in a person who's type 2 diabetic. Control the insulin, control your health issues. Okay. And that's what the system does is it controls the insulin. So whether you're type 1 or type 2, you're eating basically the same foods as each other, right? Just because you're a type 1 diabetic and you go to somebody's house and they're having Indian food, do you eat differently than they eat? Or do you eat the same foods? But now your blood sugar is going up and you have a need for insulin, so your pump is acting harder, or you're having to take a rescue insulin because your blood sugars went so high. Type 2 diabetic experiences it a little different, but our sugars go up and our insulin goes up. Now, with the cycle of insulin resistance, once we have that hyperinsulinemia and the cells start to become resistant, when the cells, and by the way, they're becoming resistant because they're oxidized and they're inflamed. Many of them are. Okay. So now those cells are like, I can't let any more energy into this cell that's oxidized, inflamed, and sick because that's going to make it worse. So it says, not today. Insulin, not today. And then insulin goes, yeah, but I got to get this blood or this sugar out of the bloodstream. So it says, okay, well, the body has a storage unit, and I'm going to take this excess and I'm going to put it in a storage unit. And guess what that storage unit is? You guys know what our storage unit is? And we have two types of storage unit, but it puts it in your fat cells. That's your storage unit. So now you start to gain weight. Now your belly and visceral fat starts to pooch your belly out because you're gaining too much fat under the muscle wall of your tummy, and that fat's there to warm and cushion your organs, but now it's choking them out and impeding them from doing their job and making them sick and causing the liver to have cirrhosis and scarring on the liver. And it all comes back to too much energy, too much sugar, or sugar that's not being regulated. You guys, some of the stuff that we're eating would be better if we just had the right amount of fiber to go along with it. If our body was able to accept the energy that's coming in by getting rid of all that oxidation and inflammation, by getting the energy levels and needs leveled out in our system, instead of, I like to think of the fiber like a time release capsule. Instead of allowing sugar to go straight through your gut and into your small intestine and boom, in your bloodstream it goes, and now you have a problem, the fiber is slowing that down. So it's giving you energy more steadily. So you're not as hungry throughout the day. Your energy levels stay more stable because the energy isn't going crash or spike, crash, spike, crash, spike, crash, and you're on this roller coaster all day long of glucose and insulin, and you're sick. By the way, when you spike your insulin high, it takes much longer to come down than your blood sugars. When you eat a meal, your blood sugars will spike at about 2 hours after you eat. It doesn't happen immediately. You're going to start to see them go up, but the highest point they're going to be at is about 2 hours after you eat. If you don't put any more food in your face, your blood sugars will start to drop and they'll start to bottom back out, level out at about 4 hours. But now you spiked your insulin. So now your insulin is up there high. And it says, okay, well, I got to be a good guard. They're probably going to eat again. I got to be ready. And so insulin is staying high about 8 hours after you had your last bite of food. And we need to get insulin down so that we can access fat stores, so that we can start to let our cells repair, so that we can start to have cellular turnover, grow new heart cells, grow new liver cells, grow new kidney cells, grow new skin cells, and new muscle cells. But when we're fed all the time, we're not doing that. In fact, I am going to start talking to a lot of my athlete friends because here's another conundrum. The more insulin resistant you are, the more resistant you are to putting on muscle. So if you're obese and you're having some type of insulin resistance, you have to work way harder to put on natural muscle, much less muscle like powerlifters and bodybuilders want, because insulin resistance is impeding that energy delivery to your muscles. You start to get your insulin sensitivity back. Now you can get energy into your muscles and bear more muscle weight, less fat weight. And I don't care who you are. I was a power lifter. Dude, if I wanted to be 198 pounds, I would rather it be muscle than fat because I was going to move more weight with more muscle. That's another thing with insulin resistance. We're losing muscle mass, and it's important because muscle is not just your skeletal muscle, it's your heart, it's your liver, it's your kidneys, it's your intestines. Okay. We have a lot of muscle tissue throughout our body. It's not all skeletal muscle. If your skeletal muscles are resistant to insulin, so are the others, and you're suffering. So get your insulin resistance under control. Now, I said I was going to talk about the business. You guys, I get so geeked out about the science. I want to talk about the business a little bit because I need to do a better job of that. I cannot talk to everybody by myself. That's why we have Jason in here, why we have Wendy, why we have Dale, why we have all these other people, because they work with people that I've never met, would never know. And they do a great job of helping other people start to feel better too, while they're supplementing their income or creating a whole stream of income for themselves. So yes. Yeah, Jason says he's way stronger than he used to be. And that's important. That's that muscle thing. By the way, before I get into I've got to get to the business part, but I want to drop this too. Many of those GLP-1 injectables can cost you up to 40% in muscle when you lose weight. So what that means in simple English is if you lose 10 pounds, 6 of it is fat, 4 of it could be muscle. Let's multiply that. You lose 100 pounds. Well, what if you knew that 60 pounds of it might be fat, but you could have lost up to 40% of that in muscle, which means 40 pounds in muscle tissue. Again, skeletal, heart, liver, all of those things not getting the energy they need. And now it's harder to put that back on the older you get. Okay. You guys, I'm so happy that you guys appreciate this. I know I take a different route than many people, but it's so important for me that people understand. I know I've met people who said, "Who cares? It works, it works." But if you're like me, you're tired of everybody telling you about all the stuff that works, and you wanna know, is this really worth me investing in? Is this really worth me doing? Is this really gonna change my life? Because 'Cause I'm sick and tired of being lied to. That's why I go into the science, because I want you to know it's real. I don't go into the science just because I'm a geek. I go into the science because I want you guys to know that, I wouldn't be here doing this if it wasn't for the science, okay? So, those of you who are interested, Red did this way back in the 90s. I saw that earlier and I forgot to mention it. He did this way back in the 90s, was overshadowed by Slim Fast and Weight Watchers, even with their horrible results. It's all marketing, right? So here's the other thing with the business model. I want you guys to know that 56% of the profits, instead of going to marketing companies, instead of going to store markups, it's going back to distributors like me, like Jason, like Dale, like Wendy. We're the ones who are getting paid. Hey, from New Zealand. Now, I had a friend who tried to teach me because she's Maori, uh, Sonia, and let me not murder her last name, Maneana. She was a power lifter from New Zealand, and she tried to teach me how to say kia ora. I hope I said it somewhat right, but hello from the US to New Zealand. So love seeing you guys in here. All right. So the reality is, you guys, with the business side of this, if you want to help other people get better like we are, I want you to understand this. The reality we're living in is we are in the middle of a health crisis. Thank you. I need to practice it. I need to practice it for sure. 99% of us have some form of insulin resistance. So whether we know it or not, we have some form of insulin resistance. Yet most of us, just like me, are still stuck, or like I was, in a cycle of sick care where we're giving medications and band-aid solutions, and yet nothing is really changing. So most of us are stuck in that cycle, and we're waiting until something's broken to really figure out how to fix it. We're waiting until we're so sick that we cannot take it anymore, and either we give up or we do one last ditch effort, right? That's the problem. We're not getting ahead of our healthcare and preventing it from happening in the first place. We're getting more medications and more diagnoses, and we're just getting sicker and not getting better. I'm here because I want people to get better, and so are the people I work with. We all want people to get better. We're a part of a movement, and I want you to be part of the movement if you feel like this too. We got to take back control of our health. We've got to understand why we're sick, and we got to get off all of these medications that are causing so many problems when we don't need them. There's time and place for them. We need them, but in the right time and place, and we're not getting them in that time. So I want you to think about this. If you could wake up like I did, I used to live on a twin mattress in a hallway in my 50s, and now I have an amazing home, and I'm able to be there for my family. But I want you to think about if you could wake up every morning knowing that the work you did that day is still paying you while you're sleeping, was helping someone else while you're sleeping, that other people are getting healthy and getting their life back and having family time and having experiences that they might not have had if your voice didn't reach them. I want you to think about what that kind of job would feel like. And look, it's not for everybody. I know that. Hell, sometimes it's hard for me, but it's worth it because I get to positively impact my family, my friends, people I don't know, people around the world. And I know every night when I lay my head down, I've helped somebody get better. That's how I want to live. And if you feel like that too, whether you're just trying to supplement your income or whether you're trying to make real replaceable income, I invite you to book a meeting with me and talk about it. Yeah. Weight Watchers and Slim Faster marketing firms, they're not healthcare companies. So, and here's the thing, I get it. A lot of people will be like, "I don't have time. I don't have knowledge. I don't know what I'm doing." We have the systems and the tools all in place. All you have to do is execute, and then you get support, and we have meetings and all kinds of help for you to get where you need to be. One of the big things for me was I didn't believe in this type of thing in the beginning. I did it because I wanted to affect people. I did it because I knew that I could help people, but I didn't really believe in the income opportunity from it until I had fallen back into a job, right? But it was volatile. Um, the person who was my friend actually ended up being very toxic to almost everyone on the crew. We were driving cars. I broke my right foot jumping in and out of big trucks in the wintertime. It was hot in the winter. I mean, hot in the summer, cold in the winter. Our hours were never guaranteed. We might get a call and have to be ready to roll in a half an hour. It was horrible. I made decent money, but I was like, at the same time, I kept getting this check every month, every month, every month because I was helping people, but I wasn't focused on it. And it took me a minute because I'm a little hard headed to understand that I was making money helping people even when I wasn't even trying. And what would happen if I just focused on that instead of trying to run to all the things that I'd been told were what we could do to make our living. And when I invested in this completely, I was able to 5x my income, move, travel the world, and do all the things I wanted to while helping people feel better. So that's a little bit about my story. And I know that so many other people out there are suffering with it. Like, I don't know, you don't have to have any special knowledge. We have um, a single mother of three who does this, no special knowledge, inundated by the needs of her kids or ADHD and all of that. We have a train director from England. We have athletes. We have realtors. We have a woman who worked for a university and felt really unfulfilled in her job as a social media marketer for her job. We have truck drivers who built the business out of their truck until they could afford to really take care of their families and be there for them. So that's what this business can do. It's not just for nerds like me or people who want to dive into the science. It's just for people who want to help other people. And if you're interested, I'd love to have you on the team. Let's talk and see if we could work together because I really want to get this out there. You guys, I get so excited. It's not just here on the live streams that I get all excited and want to talk about this. Every day I meet people, I see people, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to talk to you about insulin resistance because you don't know. And you could feel so much better if you would just listen to me and hear me out. You guys, if you feel like you want to help people, just contact me. All right. So I'm looking for people who are ready to take control of their health, their time, and their financial future and help other people. So it doesn't matter. You can do it a couple hours a day, a couple hours a week, full time. It's whatever your goals are, it can fit in for you. But here's the caveat, you do have to do some work. You're going to have to learn a little bit about this. You're going to have to put yourself out there. It's not just a magic ticket. You got to do the work. Just like if you didn't show up for your job every day, you wouldn't get paid. But my grandson is disabled and it's devastating. He might be in a wheelchair within a year. Um, I give him a lot of time. If I was working the regular job that I was working to survive and working 2 jobs to survive, I wouldn't be able to give him the time that he needs, and I wouldn't be able to fulfill my soul by spending time with him. I would always be working to put a roof over my head. This has changed that for me. So, you're capable of so much more than you think, and right now, I want you to think about, do you have a plan to get where you're going? Everybody has dreams of, if I won the lottery, I would. I can't tell you how many times I hear that. If you could take something and spend 2 to 5 years, a year to 5 years, and build something that would rival what you could do with a lottery ticket, would you be willing to do that? Because if you're the kind of person who wants to dive in and learn and do that, then I want you on the team helping other people. Okay. So there is a link in my profile that allows you to book a consultation call with me and figure out. I'm not pushy. I'm not going to tell you, you got to do this. I'm not going to strangle you. But we're just going to sit down and figure out together whether this can work for you. So I see your question, and I just had to get there because I get off track, Christy. So you have psoriasis. So this isn't good for me, but good luck to everyone. So why would you say that it's not good for you? Gastroparesis is often driven by type 2 diabetes and high insulin. The insulin levels are causing your nerve function to go down and your gastrointestinal system to shut down. Is it a longer road for you to heal? Yes. But understand how you got gastroparesis in the first place. Unless it's some very, very specific genetic disorder, it was likely driven by insulin resistance in the first place. So if it's gotten to that point, your insulin resistance just got so bad that it shut down your intestines. And I know that it's frustrating and I know that you feel hopeless, but you don't have to. Does it take going about it a little differently for you? Yeah, but it will help over time. And if you had the chance of not having to be in fear of having those blockages and having to go to the emergency department to have them removed because you could become septic and sick and all of that stuff, if you could start to reverse what caused that to happen, what caused your gastrointestinal system to start freezing up, would it be worth you trying it for 90 days? It's a good question, right? Okay. All right, you guys, I think I'm done. I've been on for a long, long time today. Thank you guys for firing me up and keeping me in this red. So good to see you. Just either message me or use one of the links to book a time with me, either to talk about the product or the business. And let's get you moving too. Because you guys, like I said, we're in 60 countries around the world, and we've been dramatically helping people around the world. And I can't do it alone. I can't reach everyone in Ireland and England and the UAE and in Australia and New Zealand and everything by myself. I need a team of people who want to do that to help me get the message out with a simple natural protocol that's really changing lives. So where do you find the product? If you're on TikTok, so just go to my link above. So tap on my picture. The white box comes up below when you tap on my picture. Click on that box. You'll get to my profile. When you get to my profile, there's 2 red lights right under my picture with the red glasses. And the first link in there is the link to my landing page. You'll find all the information you need, either about the product, how to get a hold of me, any of that in that link. And then you guys, I love having conversation. Obviously, I love to talk. Don't ever feel bad about reaching out to me. I will say this, I'm going to remind you guys of this. I'm often on these types of lives or on phone calls or doing research. So just text me first. and say, "Hey, I wanna talk to you," and we'll set up a time to talk. A lot of times, I'll just pick up the phone and call you right back. But if I'm busy, it may take a little while. I will always get back to you in that day, unless it's the weekend, because that's for my family, right? It's just utilize the tools that are here to reach out to me, to get yourself feeling better, and hopefully join the team that's changing lives around the world, okay? We will see you guys tomorrow. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and I appreciate every one of you for being here. We'll talk to you soon.